राम राम मनीष भैया, राम राम। आप
Next slide, please. Shubhangi, next slide. एक मिनट रुकिए.
Respected people here. The antiquity of Bharatiya civilization. We need to first understand that we are the continuous and the oldest civilization on the earth. It's not just unfounded claim, or it is why Bharat was called Vishwa Guru, because India was the first civilization which flourished based on a great knowledge traditions established by Vedic rishis. So our history starts from the Swayambhuva Manu, the son of Brahma. Then thereafter we have a genealogical history recorded in Puranas and various other historical literature. Thereafter, the Vaivasvata Manu, and then we have the Ikshvaku dynasty that ruled over vast area in India. Then the Bharata dynasty, the Kurus and Pandavas and the Mahabharata era. Thereafter, the well-known history, chronological history has been recorded in Puranas. So our antiquity, what is being taught in the modern academia is India has no chronology if you go beyond 500 BC. So we have hardly 2,500 years history is in the modern textbooks. And entire history from Rigveda till Buddha has been just, they say that hardly 1,000 years. I don't know what kind of this history has been framed on last 200 years of colonial legacy. Actually, that starts from 1784 when the Sir William Jones, he established the foundation of modern Indian historical research in Asiatic Society of Bengal. But prior to that, India had its own chronological history. We had numerous inscriptions that claim that that goes back to the Kali Yuga era, because the epoch of eras are the fundamental sheet anchors for the chronology of every civilization. A civilization had a continuous calendar, because anybody can record history in years elapsed. So they must have a calendar and an epoch of eras. That actually India had a continuous their astronomical tradition since Vedic era to even till date. If we can reconstruct our ancient calendars, then we will easily find out our antiquity as well as the lot of archaeoastronomical data. So what I'll do, I'll just share my presentation and then we can discuss what actually the Indian chronological antiquity and our chronological perspective. Generally, how we see our antiquity: Vedic, post-Vedic period, Ramayana era, Mahabharata era, Kali Yuga, Buddha and Adi Shankaracharya. Then this is our major events in our traditional chronological history. So before the arrival of Britishers in India, everybody, tradition, even the Rajatarangini, Kalhana's Rajatarangini, even thousands of inscriptions, they refer to the epoch of Kali Yuga, 3101. So Mahabharata from 32nd century BC onwards, we had a very meticulous chronological history has been recorded in Puranas, Rajatarangini, and various other, because even we have a numerous Vanshavalis starting from Mahabharata, also like a Roruka dynasty. They have a chronological history of even the Jammu Rajavanshavali. So we have a unbroken genealogy starting from Mahabharata era also. But prior to Mahabharata, how to find out the timeline? So modern historians, what they did, they just dated Buddha around 483 BC, Buddha's Nirvana. And prior to Buddha, since there is a chronological error that I'm not going to talk here, there is a 1380 years chronological error in dating of Buddha. Buddha Nirvana has to be dated somewhere 1865 BC, exactly the year. And that connects because the difference, the time duration between Mahabharata war to Buddha, hardly 1200 or 1250 years. That's all. But when you have brought forward the Buddha date, Buddha Nirvana date to 483 BC, there is a huge gap between the Mahabharata war and the Buddha, more than 2700 years. This chronological gap led to rejecting entire history beyond Buddha is either mythology or just a vague historical narrative. So this is the reason why the colonial historians have invented an idea of Aryan invasion and somewhere 1500 BC, 2000 BC. Then everything, the Indian civilizations are. So according to the modern narrative, India never existed beyond 1500 BC, before Aryan's invasion. So then they found out an alien civilization called Indus Valley civilization. And they say after the decline of Indus Valley civilization, the modern Indian civilization started. This is a totally a false narrative. And if you see, the no civilization can be suddenly vanished. We are not the Indus Valley civilization people were not dinosaurs. Okay, they just vanished due to some kind of a, in a very catastrophic, probably asteroid or a comet hit on Earth. But it's only few cities lost since Saraswati River dried up, or due to a natural calamities, few cities lost, but civilization did not lost. And if you see, the Indus Valley civilization was a urban civilization and a literate civilization, though we could not, though many scholars deciphered the Indus script like Kalyana Raman and many other. So they were the literate. I don't know what happened suddenly after invasion. Entire civil society became rural and illiterate. I don't know. It is such an illogical because we could write Sanskrit text, everything only around 500 BC because we just oral tradition existed. So these are totally, you can't believe the kind of a fiction they are being taught to us in the name of history. So let us explore Indian antiquity because chronological framework is extremely important because chronology is the backbone of historical narrative. So what I'll do, I'll just talk because I will give you evidences. First is the continuity of ancient Indian calendars because we have to establish our the calendrical continuity because that is the must for every civilization because your chronological history, whatever has been recorded, can only be decoded with reference to a calendar or any epoch of era. Then archaeoastronomical evidences, because in the literature, because if you go beyond Buddha, Buddha Nirvana, we don't have much archaeological evidences. Though we have various like Harappan cities and other, those we can reconcile. But the exact dating, so we need an archaeoastronomy gives a very fundamental science that gives a great evidence based on the archaeoastronomical studies, we can even fix certain absolute date for the historical events in the remote past. Then certain archaeological evidences, and then we will discuss the modern scientific evidences like a sea level rise, because certain cities have been lost due to the level rise in the sea level, bathymetric studies, and certain other scientific evidences. Then we will work out the what actually the chronological framework of Bharatiya civilization. So this is the continuity as per the, because we have our entire history beyond Mahabharata, or even today also we say that we are living in Kali Yuga. This Yuga, what is Yuga? What was the concept of Chatur Yuga? Though presently, because the many astronomical texts, Indian texts like Surya Siddhanta and thereafter whatever the texts have been written, they give a chronology, Yuga duration around 4,32,000, but this is only around Mahabharata and post Mahabharata. These are the timelines given. But naturally, scientifically establishing such these timelines are not. It is extremely difficult because we need to establish millions of years of chronological history is not possible. Therefore, the modern historian says it is just a speculative. It's not a speculative, but Yuga and Chatur Yuga were actually a calendars. Yuga is nothing. It's not a kind of a like like a Jurassic era and others. Yuga was a cycle in a calendar. Beginning of a new era means a new cycle in a calendar. So let us explore what actually Yuga mean in Vedic era and post Vedic era and during the Ramayana era. Though this, I'll just skip this one because it is known. Is this Chatur Yuga cycles what actually the concept are infinite time cycles and a mathematical expansion of multiples of Chatur Yuga like 43 lakhs 20,000. Then present Chatur Yuga is actually 28th Chatur Yuga in 7th Manvantara. The unsolved puzzles, what actually in Surya Siddhanta, it is written that Mayasura wrote Surya Siddhanta at the end of the 28th Krita Yuga. The present Krita Yuga is 28th. And the Bharata Muni, the Natya Shastra, the author of Natya Shastra, Bharata, he says that he is writing this book in Treta Yuga. Okay. Because at that time they were following a calendar, so they are recording their dates. And it is well known, Bhagwan Shri Ram, he flourished at the end of the 28th Treta Yuga, last century of the Treta Yuga. Then Mahabharata war took place at the end of 28th Dwapara Yuga. Presently, the 28th Kali Yuga is in progress. Now, we need to understand what actually the concept of Yuga and Chatur Yuga, how the concept has been evolved. If you go back to the Vedic era, so this is during the Rigvedic era, the Yuga had only 5 years and Chatur Yuga had only 20 years. And this thereafter, Yuga length has been increased to 1200 years. Then the 1200 years become 12,000 years somewhere post Ramayana era, and 12,000 years have been multiplied by 360. That became 4,32,000 or 43,20,000 years. This, why they have to do it? Because Indians were actually, the Indian astronomers, they were researching for a very accurate the intercalation in Indian calendar. So they found that you can't have, because you are dealing with the fractions. The year is not exactly 365 days. It is actually 365 few hours. You can't intercalate few hours in a calendar. You have to have a one day. You can intercalate or you can delete one day. you can intercalate 1 month or delete 1 month, but you can't adjust few hours in a calendar. So, and Indian mathematicians are looking for a integer solutions for making the calendar. For that purpose, because once you're dealing with the fractions, you have to just take a big numbers to achieve the accuracy. So this is what exactly the Indian astronomers did. They just started expanding the length of the yuga to achieve the accuracy. So we need to understand the difference between the historical yuga cycles and the astronomical yuga cycles. It's actually we mixed up the both. That's why we say that maybe lakhs of years, millions of years that concept came into after Surya Siddhanta and others. But we had a historical yuga cycles. The yuga was actually a calendar we were following. So that what I have established based on this Surya Siddhanta. Surya Siddhanta, if you say Asmin Krita Yugasyante Sarve Madhya Gata Graha, what I'll do, I will share you one my documentary recently I made just a year before, because 2022 was the year in which we have completed 8,800 years of Surya Siddhanta. Because Surya Siddhanta, this statement, Asmin Krita Yugasyante Sarve Madhya Gata Graha, actually, the Surya Siddhanta is referring to a very, very rare conjunction of all 5 planets, Sun and Moon, and that took place on Chaitra Shukla Pratipada. I'm just in a, like all planets, an average. It takes 400 years to have a conjunction. Conjunction means all planets within 30 degrees, because if you divide 360 degrees into 12, it is the 30 degree. 30 degrees is one Rashi, one solar month. Within the 30 degrees, all planets and Sun and Moon. Sun and Moon should come together. It means it's a Sun-Moon conjunction is an Amavasya, new moon day. But the new moon day has to be just Chaitra Shukla Pratipada. You can use all what I did. I have used the various softwares, and when you one more important point is the sun should be in the first degree of Aries, Meshadau, the statement. So all these things, what I did, I just calculated up to 20,000 BC onwards. I didn't go beyond 20,000 because it's the difficult to find out a civilization in a ice age, because in an ice age, it's only one season, either harsh winter or a mild winter. You may not be having the regular rainy seasons to flourish an agrarian civilization or agrarian society. So in India, southwest monsoons became regular only somewhere 18,000 BC to 16,000 BC. That was the timeline. So in 20,000 years, this is the only date possible for this conjunction. And if somebody says that this has been back calculated, it means the Indians knew about the theory of gravity and how the gravitation that affects the planetary motions, and you have to adjust that correction also, and you need modern softwares and modern computers to have getting this accurate dating. Otherwise, because if you back calculate, it may lead to few days or a month error also. And it's not possible to predict conjunction just manual mathematical calculations. You have to have a presently, because this Indian these astronomical softwares, they became more and more accurate only last 20 years or 30 years. And the NASA, they developed one the JPL Horizons. This is the delta T correction methodology, an algorithm. Based on that, we could calculate very accurate dates. So this is the sheet anchor, what I have established, that this becomes the sheet anchor for the Yuga chronology, because when Mayasura wrote Surya Siddhanta, within that year, a Krita Yuga ended. It means you got the beginning of Treta Yuga. Okay. End of Krita Yuga, beginning of Treta Yuga. So that is 6777 BC. So this is how what happened in Indian astronomy and Indian calendar, and whenever we are working out the Indian chronology, this is the a basic foundation, a scientific foundation for the Yuga chronology, because you can only decipher Indian antiquity in terms of yugas if you are going beyond Mahabharata, because that was our tradition, and the Yuga was just a Indian calendar. So Indian history, especially with reference to the astronomy, that begins with this Siddhantic and pre-Siddhantic separation. The Siddhantic astronomy, how that differs, because आपने कुंभ मेला के बारे में सुना होगा 12 वर्षों का. What is this 12 years cycle? It is actually a cycle of Jupiter. When you have added planetary motion to the Indian calendar, that became Siddhanta astronomy. Pre-Siddhanta, planetary motions were not part of Indian calendar. Just you are following solar and lunar motions, you are reconciling. That is the lunisolar calendar we were following. Later, we have added Jupiter motion to the lunisolar calendar. That is Siddhantic astronomy. That Siddhantic astronomy starts from the foundation of Surya Siddhanta, and that took place, or Mayasura wrote the Surya Siddhanta in 20. He actually referred to the epoch of 22nd February 6778 BC, exactly 8,800 years before. And then he founded this his Siddhanta that came to be known as Surya Siddhanta. Now, one more thing we have to do. Any yugas referred before Mayasura's Surya Siddhanta, we have to calculate in terms of 5 years one yuga, 20 years Chatur Yuga. After that, we have to take 1200 years, because our basic yuga cycles, now they started referring to 12 and in multiples of 12s. Prior to that, we used to follow 5 and multiples of 5. So this is the basic difference in Indian calendrical history. So this is the basis. So now we may exactly establish the epoch of the beginning of Treta Yuga. Then we will get the Ramayana era. And one more important point. This, since we are saying that Surya Siddhanta, Mayasura is claiming that he is writing Surya Siddhanta at the end of 28 Krita Yuga. It means 27 Chaturyugas have been elapsed. Now what you have to do, that 27 Chaturyugas into 5, you have to just multiply. If you go back 6778 BC onwards, so that is the 7322 BC, 7322 BC. That was the beginning of 7th Manvantara. Based on that, 27 Chaturyugas have been elapsed. 28 Chaturyuga when started, the Krita Yuga had only 5 years. Thereafter, a Yuga had 1200 years. And we have an astronomical reference in Bhagavata Purana, Mahabharata's Vanaparva. So they saying that the first Krita Yuga of the 7th Manvantara began when the Sun, Moon, Jupiter were conjuncted in Pushya Nakshatra. And they coincided with the vernal equinox. If you see this 24th May 7321, if you see the Jupiter, Sun, Moon, and the Pushya Nakshatra, and it is the vernal equinox. So this is how you will reconcile both the end of the 28 Krita Yuga based on the conjunction, the rare conjunction mentioned by Mayasura. And we are taking this Bhagavata Purana Mahabharata Vanaparva. So then we have the complete the 27 Chaturyuga and the 28 Chaturyuga till we are following. So this is a scientific establishment of Indian chronological framework based on our various references in our historical text. This is how the chronology, this is the conjunction. Now, when we work out the chronology, the 7322 BC to 6782, 540 years and 27 Chaturyugas have been elapsed. 7322, 6782 BC. Then when the 20th Chaturyuga started, the Krita Yuga had 5 years. That's why Mayasura wrote Surya Siddhanta in 22nd on 22nd February 678 BC. After the 1 year, the Treta Yuga began, and Treta Yuga had 1200 years because that time the Yuga lengths have been increased from 5 to 12 and 1200 years. Then after this Treta Yuga, the Yuga lengths have been made as a differential duration. The concept of differential duration came only when we have the length of Chaturyuga has been considered 12,000 years. That's why Dwapara Yuga had 2400 years. Now, when we started counting the Kali Yuga, by the time the astronomers changed the Yuga cycles from, because they multiplied the Yuga cycle by 360, this is the reason Kali Yuga had 4,32,000, even though today more than 5,200 years have been elapsed from around 5,180 years from 3101. Still, the Kali Yuga is continuing. Why? Because Yuga cycles have been increased. Otherwise, Kali Yuga should have been the duration of Kali Yuga was only 1200 years. But when you multiply 1200 by 360, that is 4,32,000. This is our historical timeline of 7th Manvantara. So the Ramayana era can be exactly dated in the last century of the Treta Yuga, that is 5677 to 5577 BC. And the exact date of Bhagwan Rama birth date is 3rd February 5674 BC. That is the Chaitra Shukla Navami. Based on this Yuga
Question.
cycle.
Question is but in 1 year they are still counting 365 days, right?
Yes. There is no. That is like, it is only what happened, the Yuga from Vaidika Yura to 6777 BC. Our Yugas had only 5 years. A Chaturyuga had 20 years. Okay. Why this concept was? Because 5 years, in a 5 years, we used to intercalate 2 lunar months after 2.5 years. So that used to reconcile a solar calendar as well as lunar calendar, because we followed from Vedic era lunisolar calendar only, because that is the only scientific calendar. Because the month has to be based on the moon and the year should be based on the solar motion.
Correct.
Okay. So either full moon to full moon or new moon to new moon is the month.
Correct.
So you need not to make any calendar and you print and hang in on a wall. You just go out and see, you will know what is the date of today. So the natural, we followed the scientific calendar. You can observe every day. Every day you just see where the moon is, that is the nakshatra. And if it is new moon, then or full moon, your new month is beginning. Okay. But what happened, this concept, after 20 years, we used to add 15 days more. What happens in a 5-year Yuga cycle, if you are intercalating 2 lunar months, when your cycle reaches 20 years, actually we are adding up 15 days more. Then the Vedic rishis came out of an idea, why not we intercalate only half month? Ardha Masa. If you see in the Vedic text, there was a tradition of Ardha Masa intercalation. So in the last, the 20th year means the 4th Yuga, they used to intercalate only half month in the last intercalation. Due to that, actually they used to follow the first Yuga, the Chaturyuga cycle used to begin with the new moon, Amavasya. But when the 20 years get completed, the calendar used to end at full moon. So then the second Chaturyuga used to start full moon, mean Purnimanta, but end on new moon. But this was little complicated because this Ardhamasa intercalation was not so user-friendly or that way. That's why the research kept on continuing. How to get away from. Then Siddhanta Jyotisha came that let us reconcile the intercalation with reference to the Jupiter motion. Then you need not to intercalate Ardhamasa. So this is the crux of the how our calendars change from that 5 20-year yuga cycles to the bigger yuga cycles. Because when 12-year means you can't have the Jupiter motion is not exactly 12 years. So but you need to have some kind of a integer values and the round figures. That's why we have taken 1200. Then they said that 1200 is also not good enough for having an accurate integer value. So then said, okay, we will have a 12,000 years. Then we multiplied by 360. Then we achieved very 6 seconds or hardly 1 or 2 minute error. That is the maximum, the possible. This is how we have scientifically and we made our calendar more and more accurate. But what happened over a period, we started thinking that this 4,32,000 or 43,20,000 yuga cycle is the only our historical. That led to loss of chronology. This is the reason why the Ramayana it says that Rama lived for 11,000 years.
Yeah.
Okay. You just divide 11,000 by 360, it is only 31 years.
Correct.
Okay. So this, when we started updating our text, we started these very gigantic yuga cycles are very thousands of years for a lifetime.
Could you please repeat the last part one more time about Bhagwan Rama?
This is the Treta Yuga. So what I did, the fixing of the Treta Yuga, I have first fixed the end of the Krita Yuga based on the Surya Siddhanta. Okay. That is exact date is 22nd February 6778. So now you have to take 1200 years for Treta Yuga, and that Treta Yuga ended somewhere 5577 BC. So that 100 years is 5677 to 5577. Then what I did, there is a reference in Ramayana that when Rama ordered Vanarasena to march towards Lanka, so it means on 14th year of his Vanavasa, okay, the Vanarasena is going to invade Sri Lanka. That time Lakshmana is referring one very rare occurrence of a comet is in Mula Nakshatra, and also a planet is also affecting that Mula Nakshatra. So a particular date has been given. What I did, when you simulate it, it is actually Halley's comet that was there 5635 BCE. And since Ravana was born in Mula Nakshatra and a comet is visible in Mula Nakshatra, means generally it is astrologically, it is assumed that he will die. So that's why the Lakshmana was predicting that now the end of Rakshasas is very imminent because the comet is visible in Mula Nakshatra. It is the very, if you calculate 5635 and 14 years, 5649 is the beginning of his Vanavasa, and 25 years, he was at the age of 25 years, he went for Vanavasa. So the exact date comes 3rd February 5674 BC. So this is how we have to calculate the timelines, because we need an absolute dates for the Ramayana. And one more, I will tell you a bathymetric evidence also. If you go back to 6000 or 7000 BCE, Sri Lanka was not an island. Ramayana refers to Sri Lanka as a dvipa, an island. If you go back to 6000, 7000 BCE, the land between Tamil Nadu and Sri Lanka was above the sea level. You can easily walk into the Sri Lanka. Why do you need a bridge or something? That Ramasetu construction was actually during the Ramayana period, during high tide, Dhanushkodi Talaimanar, the area that used to submerge by hardly a meter or half a meter of water. But since you are going to the Sri Lanka and you are invading enemy territory, nobody is going to support you logistically. And you need food. Various in the Sri Lanka, the Asuras or Rakshasas are not going to support for your army. So everything the logistics support the Rama's army needed from Rameshwaram. And in a war, you may have to take a backstep sometime to prepare again and invade. So you needed a strategically a link between Sri Lanka and so what the Vanar sent, they just filled the land filling. They did land filling and raised the platform of the meter or 1.5 meter, so that even during the high tide, the area does not submerge in the sea. Based on that, that is actually the Ramasetu construction. Today, the sea water level is more than 7 to 8 meters above that Ramasetu, and whatever has been they filled up, probably washed away. So whatever is natural formation only, what we see presently in that NASA images, we should not claim that that has been constructed by Rama. That is a natural formation. That is the, it's only during that time they filled land filling they have done, raised the land level so that they can, they have a connectivity between the Sri Lanka and Rameshwaram. So this is the, that's why the historicity of Ramayana can only be established based on these facts. First, Sri Lanka has to be an island, and the timeline based on the Treta Yuga calendar and various dates given in Ramayana. So let us, apart from this, let us establish the archaeoastronomical evidences. Like the Brahma's dating, how to date, because when we go beyond the Ramayana, now it becomes more and more a rough dating only. We can't get so accurate dates. First is there is a saying Dhanishtadis tada kalo brahmana parikalpitaha. This is actually occurrence of summer solstice as Dhanishta. Before, because if you read Vedas, I think in Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, everywhere it is written, generally the Jivema Sharadaha Shatam, Pashyema Sharadaha Shatam. So what is Sharada? Sharad, it means actually the Rigvedic people, means in we Bharatiya, used to follow a year from Sharad Ritu to Sharad Ritu, autumn to autumn, means from autumnal equinox to autumnal equinox, we used to follow a calendar. This was the reason why Sharad Ritu became synonymous to a year or Samvatsara. But before that, why we call Varsh? Varsh. एक साल के लिए हम वर्ष शब्द क्यों होता है संस्कृत? Because at the beginning of Indian astronomy, naturally an agrarian society need a calendar from Varsha Ritu to Varsha Ritu. Okay, from that Varsha, the word came Varsh, and during Brahma, because Brahma was the first rishi who linked the Indian calendar with the astronomical observations. What he did, we need, because in the Saraswati River region, it means the North India, at Delhi or even say Haryana, Rajasthan, we experience rainy season only somewhere closer to summer solstice, even today, because today, somewhere 21st June or 25th June, you receive the rain in Delhi or in Haryana and Rajasthan. That was the Saraswati River region. It means the Brahma wanted to find out summer solstice first, and then link with the astronomical observations. So he observed that the summer solstice used to occur at Dhanishta. So then you just now simulate on software that goes back to 15,000 to 14,000. I took midway, somewhere 14,000 BC, should be the date of Brahma and his son Manu. Thereafter, there was a difference of 1,000 years between Brahma and Vishwamitra. Why? Because Vishwamitra is saying in the details recorded in Mahabharata that now that summer solstice has been shifted to Shravana, not Dhanishta. And in Gopatha Brahmana, it is mentioned that Vishwamitra Rishi was the first person who has observed this phenomena of precession. That is called Sampata. And it is a verifiable fact. If you go 13,500 BC, now the summer solstice used to occur at Shravana. Actually, the conflict between Vishwamitra and Vasishtha related to the Trishanku who was ruling at Ayodhya. This is very, very interesting. Where Vasishtha was following the traditional calendar based on the Dhanishta. This was the reason why Trishanku is not able to get the desired results. Then Vishwamitra came that no, he is doing wrong. Now the summer solstice is not occurring at Dhanishta. It says it's Shravana. When he has proven this, then Vasishtha lost. Then Vasishtha has to go back and he did tapasya, means he did more research, more then he came out of this Sharad Ritu calendar, saying that starting a year from Ayana to Ayana would be a problem. Why not we start a calendar from equinox to equinox, so that Vishuvat to Vishuvat. This is how from 13,500 BC onwards, we started following that Sharad Ritu calendar of that Yuga cycle, that 5-year Yugas. This is how that started. Our Yuga calendar started from 13,500. That is continuous till Mahabharata. Even in Mahabharata, the reference. But what happened? What the Yuga used to start somewhere in autumnal equinox. When Mahabharata, during the Mahabharata, it used to start at Uttarayana, at winter solstice. This is how what I'm mentioning, this autumnal equinox, because so many Ashwini Suktas, more than 50 Suktas of Ashwini Suktas in Rig Veda, they refers to the Ashwini as a rising star, means Ashwini nakshatra, means the Aries, the first nakshatra of Aries. The autumnal equinox used to occur at Ashwini. So this is also, you can estimate 13,500 BC. Then this is how you can date Brahma and Vishwamitra. And Ramayana says that there was a 1,000 years difference between the both. And he was the first Vishwamitra. And Raivatamanu, who actually built Kushasthali somewhere, Raivataka Parvata, you might have heard about Girnar in Saurashtra. And its original name is Raivataka, because Raivatamanu established, and it is actually his name he was named after Revati Nakshatra. So that Revati, that is the occurrence of autumnal equinox at Revati, around 12,500 BC. Then it comes, we have started basic trigonometry. We have added to our Indian calendar during the Rigvedic era. 12 आदित्यास, 12 आदित्यों का जो reference आता है, वो that is actually 12 rashis. Means you have divided 360-degree zodiac into 12 parts. Each part is one Aditya. These are 12 solar months. And the names have been given in Rig Veda. Even the Yajurveda starts Ishe, Tvorje, Tva, Vayava. So that Ishe, Tvorje, Isha is Sharad Ritu. Isha and Urja, Sharad Ritus. Why they are starting? Because during Rigvedic era, our calendar used to commence from autumnal equinox. So these are the names: Isha, Urja, Sahasya is Hemant, Tapasya is Shishir, Madhu, Madhava is these 2 months are Vasant Ritu, Shukra, Shuchi, Grishma, Nabhasya is Varsha. And one more thing, in Rigvedic era, we have rounded off to 366, not 365.25, 366, because Indians wanted an integer, because you can't have a 6 hours day in a calendar. So that's why we have 366. Due to this, what happened? We used to add up 15 days every 20 years. So that's why after 20 years, we used to intercalate only half month. This was the tradition of Vedic calendar. And Yajurveda refers to 13th month, because we have established that 28 nakshatras, means dividing the 360-degree zodiac into 28 parts and into 12 parts. So solar and the lunar, both motions we have very well established based on the basic trigonometry. And we have established first list of nakshatras starting from Mrigashira. I hope you might have heard about that book Orion, written by Balagangadhar Tirek, that Agrayana, this is the Orion. Why it is so important? Because when we have established the list of nakshatras, means first time when we have divided the 360 zodiac into 28 nakshatras, that time Mrigashira was the first nakshatra. Why? Because winter solstice used to occur at Mrigashira. Now, here two basic things. Indians followed beginning of year from the equinox, but counting of the nakshatras from solstice, because what happens after winter solstice, sun used to shift. Means the motion now, what was northwards, now that motion starts southwards. So you can easily pinpoint the degree. From there onwards, it is easy to calculate 360, because in somewhere you have a point. The winter solstice was the point we have taken for counting this 28 nakshatra. So this was somewhere 11,250 BC, the timeline what I have fixed for this. And from there onwards, we have done, you might have heard about Naimisharanya near Lucknow, and Shaunaka, Rishi, all they have performed 1,000 years of yajna. That is actually 1,000 years they studied the entire astronomy. And this is the time, this is the basic foundation of Indian astronomy. We named after all celestial bodies like a Brihaspati, Mangal, everything. These are all. Once upon a there was the historical person. We just named after astronomical bodies based, with reference to our great ancient rishis and ancient personalities. So the entire Indian astronomy evolved only, means based on the scientific, the trigonometry, as well as the this yuga cycles during 11,200 to 10,200 BC. So Rigveda, the text, what I think numerous generations, unbroken means from starting Rigvedic era to till date. I don't know, so many people have sacrificed this life to preserve this knowledge. That's why there is a saying that Brahmanena Nishkarano Dharma. I don't know whether we understand what is Nishkarana Dharma. Means without expecting, if you don't think that you are studying, you will get a good job or you will get a big package salary. But all Brahmanas sacrifice to preserve the Vedas. Brahmana is not any caste. A person who is seeking the knowledge and who actually sacrifices his life for the knowledge. And it is so beautiful that 13,000 years of the tradition, they preserved our text. That's why today we have the Vedas in the same form. It is, I think, unparalleled in the world. No one can ever preserve their traditions, their knowledge, and their even the sacred text almost 13,000 years. And when we put chronologically, because what happens, generally the scholars will study one book and say that this event can be, you cannot date any event in an isolation. You have to reconcile all evidences in a chronological framework. So then all the data related to astronomical, archaeoastronomical evidences, we have to put them in a chronological order. So that comes the summer solstice at Dhanishta, 14,500, winter solstice at Pushya Nakshatra, because Brihaspati was born when this was, that is almost 14,000 BC. So this is the Brihaspati who was the first guru of Indra and Brihaspati. And he was the person who made the foundation of the Sanskrit language. Sanskrit is actually artificially evolved language from the natural language. So the Sanskrit language is also almost 16,000 years old. And Vishwamitra, he observed summer solstice Shravana, 13,500. Then Raivatamanu and everything what we have. The story about Daksha Prajapati and 27 daughters, this is actually the 28 nakshatra. Then after 1,000 years, Vedic rishis observed the shifting of that winter solstice from Mrigashira, means Orion, to Rohini. So the numerous references, because Rohini was a daughter of Daksha. Now there is why Prajapati is now. Prajapati means the beginning of year is in Rohini. This was the numerous references related to it. Thereafter Kritika. If you see the Nakshatra Sukta of Atharva Veda, it gives a list of nakshatras starting from Kritika, because the winter solstice shifted to Kritika. Numerous scholars, they dated this Kritika list somewhere 2300 BC, because 2300 BC then vernal equinox shifted to the Kritika. But that was not the tradition. It was actually winter solstice. So it has to go back to 7200 years before 2300 BC. It is actually 9200 BC. And now, after this Kritika list, all our post-Vedic tradition starts from this period. Entire post-Vedic period, because all Brahmanas, Aranyakas, Shrauta Sutras, all follow this Kritika list. Thereafter, we have realized that dividing a 360 into 22 are actually giving a fractional values. Then they found an idea, why not we have only 27 nakshatras? So they have to, and they have seen the Abhijit was actually is away from that your elliptical the concept. So they excluded Abhijit and came out of 27 nakshatras, because when you divide the 360 degree zodiac into 27 nakshatras, it is 13.2 degree exactly. So this is how this began the beginning of very basic spherical trigonometry, and the Mayasura actually applied entire spherical trigonometry to come out of a very, very accurate Siddhanta. And this I have already explained 7322. This is how 7322 BCE, that beginning of so-called 7th Manvantara, was actually beginning of the scheme of 27 nakshatras. Prior to that, we used to follow the scheme of 28 nakshatras. We have excluded one nakshatra and made 27 nakshatra. And even today, what we are following, that Ashwini nakshatra list, it was actually established 7322 BC, because that time winter solstice shifted. And one more beautiful the background of this one. This was the reason why this Surya Siddhanta, when this was followed by the Shakas and the Persians, the Surya Siddhanta was transmitted to the Scythians and Persians somewhere 6000 BC around. Then they started that worshipping of the sun, the tradition, and the same transformed into Mithraism in the West, the worshipping of sun god, and why winter solstice became the birthday of Mithra, and how Christians hijacked that birthday of Mithra into birthday of Jesus, the 25th December. This was actually related to the Mayasura Surya Siddhanta. But when during the lifetime of Mayasura, the winter solstice used to occur in Chaitra Shukla Pratipada.
So I have a question. So winter solstice shifted to Ashwini Nakshatra around 7322 BC. After that, it has not shifted?
After 1000 years, it shifted. What happened during the Rigvedic period, we used to revise our nakshatra list after every 1000 years, okay?
Okay.
Like Mrigashira list, thereafter we came out with the Rohini list, then we came out of with the Kritikadi list. But now we said that it is not incorrect way to, why should we do every time we have to correct it? They wanted a universal solution.
Okay.
Now they come out of the irrespective of the year, then let us follow the only Ashwini Nakshatra, and we'll link with the Jupiter motion, and then they started the an accurate calendar. Okay, they got rid of that Ardhamasa intercalation. Okay, they wanted only but instead of 2 months every 5 years, they followed the Jupiter motion, and they came out of a different scheme of intercalation.
And now they have intercalation for Adhik Masa. 1 month अभी भी होता है, right?
अधिक होता है, लेकिन अधिक मास कब होता है, ये जो डिसीजन होता है वो जुपिटर मोशन पे करते हैं. पहले ये क्या करते थे, after 2.5 years they used to add 1 Ashadha month extra, and when the 5-year cycle used to end, they used to add 1 Adhika Pushya Masa. That Pushya, Ashadha, only these 2 months used to be as a Adhika Masas prior to 6777.
Okay.
After that, they said that why not we see based on the zodiac and Jupiter motion. They said when to intercalate. That was only based on this planetary motion. Okay, that is the difference between Siddhanta Jyotisha, pre-Siddhanta Jyotisha,
And
the
Jupiter
Vedanga Jyotisha.
accurate. Harsal, it is correct now. It is not here.
It's correct, but the problem is you can't, whatever the way you reconcile lunar motion or solar motion, but every 2000 years, a lunar cycle will be 1 month ahead. Why? Because it is impossible to reconcile lunar cycle with the seasonal calendar, because solar calendar is the seasonal calendar. जो चैत्र मंथ जब ये जो जब when during the lifetime of Mayasura, the Chaitra month used to occur in a winter solstice when it was a winter solstice. Okay, it means a peak winters. Now we are experienced after the vernal equinox, and during Rigvedic era, Chaitra month used to occur near Sharad Ritu, means during autumnal equinox time. Okay. This is the reason it is scientifically, it is impossible. But we wanted this was not, nobody realized this. This can happen because observing 2000 years and then doing big data analytics was not possible during that time. Now we can easily see this with making this software simulations. Okay.
Yeah.
But that time they said how to they started doing, but they wanted a fixed scheme for the nakshatras. So we came out with the 7,300 a fixed scheme of nakshatras, then started our calendars.
Good. Thank you.
This is how the 6,777 BCE, after Surya Siddhanta, we said that no more, we will go for the intercalation as per the 5 years. We will go with the intercalation as per the 1200 years cycle. Okay. Then we during the Mahabharata, after the end of Treta Yuga, we thought that this may not be good enough. Let us go for the 12,000 years. And then we came out of the differential duration. So why not the Krita Yuga should have 4,008 4 times, then Treta Yuga should have 3 times, and Dwapar Yuga should 2 times. So that this was the reason why Dwapar Yuga had 2,400 years. So the difference between Ramayana and Mahabharata is 2,400 years. Because Ramayana took place at the end of Treta Yuga and Mahabharata took place at the end of Dwapara Yuga. So this is how our entire the calendrical continuity, because any civilization must have a calendrical continuity if they are a continuous civilization. This is how the Mayasura introduced 6778 BC. Then the Mayasura, the problem is presently the exact, whatever the Surya Siddhanta is available, it was written by Latadeva, but Varaha Mihra, he wrote Pancha Siddhantika. In that, one chapter is devoted to Mayasura Surya Siddhanta. So if we see the original Mayasura Siddhanta is only available in Pancha Siddhantika. And when there were the two different traditions, Asura traditions and Deva traditions. Okay, who were Asuras? आपको ऐसा लगता है they were the demons or कोई monsters थे? ऐसा कुछ नहीं.
They were coming from the same dynasty.
No, they actually cousins.
Yeah, they were from the same dynasty.
Yeah, but, like the Aditi's sons, Kashyapa Rishi, Aditi's son were Adityas. Okay. Indra was a Aditya, but the Danu,
So
the Vishwakarma, Danu's son was a Vritrasura.
So Sambalsa came from those names. Okay, anyway. So what about the Aryabha's time then?
That I will tell you, because that all astronomical, maybe another 1 or 2 slides that will come.
Okay.
Here I am just giving the difference between Deva tradition and Asura tradition. Asuras also followed same 12,000 cycle, 12,000 years, like Zoroastrian tradition is also 12,000 years, and they followed equal duration, 3,000 years per yuga. Okay, 3,000, 3,000, 3,000. That is the 3,000s are equal to 12,000. Deva tradition follows different yuga cycles. What happened later in Asura tradition? They multiplied 3,000 by 60. That's why the yuga length became 1,80,000 years in Mayasura Surya Siddhanta. But when Latadeva wrote Surya Siddhanta, he followed Deva tradition, but he took Surya Siddhanta from Mayasura. Okay. So he followed that 4,32,000, 43,20,000 years Chaturyuga. This was not the Asura tradition. That is the difference between. So maximum a kalpa in Asura tradition was 72 lakh years, where in Deva tradition 432 crores years. Now, when we chronologically date the Siddhantic astronomy, first Mayasura Surya Siddhanta 6778 BC, then we have a Paitamaha Siddhanta and Saptarshi cycle. आपने वो सुना होगा सप्तर्षि कैलेंडर, इवन ऑल कश्मीरीज फॉलो इवन टुडे एवरी 100 years. नाउ आपके लिए एक प्रॉब्लम हो गया था, जैसे अभी तक आपके पास 5 वर्ष का युग था, 20 वर्ष का चतुर्युग था, तो आपके लाइफ में बहुत इजी है, यू कैन काउंट 5 years, सेकंड 5 years, थर्ड 5 year साइकिल, फोर्थ 5 year, 20 साइकिल हो गया. So we used to count only yuga in yuga terms. Okay, there was not a problem at all. But what happened after 6,777 BC? You have enlarged the 1,200 years. How to count now? It's a problem. Na? This cycle is not going to end in anybody's lifetime. So then they came out of an idea. Why not we have a 2,700 years cycle, and every 100 years will be named after one nakshatra. Now you can easily remember how many 100 years have been elapsed based on the nakshatras. So what they did, 6,777 BCE, they started naming every 100 years after one nakshatra. That's why first nakshatra is Ashwini. 6,777 BC to 6,677, this first 100 years, it's a subcycle. That subcycle named after Ashwini. Thereafter Bharani, then Kritika, then Rohini. This is how they started calculating the elapsed year. For that reason, this Saptarshi cycle, it is not an astronomical fact that Saptarshis will be in that particular nakshatra. Later, the historians who had not much knowledge of astronomy, they simply say that Saptarshis reside 100 years in one nakshatra. That's not an astronomical fact. It's just an assumption based on this kind of a calendrical system. And based on this, when you calculate the Magha nakshatra, the Saptarshis were in Magha nakshatra when Yudhishthira was ruling around 3,177 BC. That's that 100 years Saptarshi. And this is the Paitamaha Siddhanta. Then we have a Brahma Siddhanta. It's actually South India. South India followed this Chaitra Shukladi calendar much earlier, closer to Surya Siddhanta. And this is the reason in South India, Yugadi, that is celebrated is actually, and they started the 60-year cycle also from 6,773 BC onwards. Then we have a Vasishtha Siddhanta. It is the exact dating has been given in the terms of 4,32,000 years. When you convert into the normal historical yuga cycle, this is the Vasishtha Siddhanta. Then we have a Romaka Siddhanta. This Romaka, what is Romaka? Generally, modern historians think that this Romaka is related to Rome or something. So it is a Western Siddhanta. It has nothing, it is not an Indian origin Siddhanta. Romakas were Indians. And you know, this when Saraswati River, when shifted the course and that area from Jodhpur and Jaisalmer and that area, Saraswati River, numerous lakes, it formed numerous lakes. And that Sambhar lake that became a salty water because a water collected for hundreds of years. Then gradually it became a salt lake. So the salt produced from Sambhar lake, that used to be in Ayurveda, the Lavana, Romaka Lavana. Salt produced from these lakes like Sambhar. The salt was named as Romaka Lavana. So Romakas was Indians, and they migrated from India. That's why the Romas and Gypsies in the in East Europe, they were actually Indians, and they migrated much in antiquity, somewhere 6000 BC, as per my record. And they used to follow a cycle of 95 years. This cycle is mentioned in Shatapatha Brahmana, and if you actual that 19-year cycle of it is actually 5 19-year yuga cycles are actually equal to 95 years. That metonic cycle of 19 years is actually the concept of Romaka Siddhanta. Romaka Siddhanta's idea is very simple. He wanted an equinox in the first month of every lunar cycle. Whenever it is shifting, you intercalate 1 month. That's all. So that has given a 19-year cycle and 95-year cycle. 19 into 5, 95. So the concept of the metonic cycle is also Indian, and Romaka Siddhanta was in. And moreover, the Latadeva who wrote Surya Siddhanta, he actually wrote a commentary on Romaka Siddhanta. And I give you the Latadeva lived 3101 BC. So Romaka Siddhanta established prior to 5000, before Mahabharata era. And Yavana Siddhanta, it is actually the Greeks. They learned Mayasura Surya Siddhanta. Based on that, they came out of Yavana Siddhanta. Then a Paulisha Siddhanta and the Indian Siddhanta only. Then we have another Vaishnava tradition of Paitama Siddhanta, because we started following another different cycle of 60 years, because generally it is assumed that Prabhava should start when Jupiter is in Aries. But this Vaishnava tradition believed, no, we should start Prabhava first year of the 6th-year cycle when Jupiter is in Dhanishta, in Capricorn. Then Parashara Siddhanta, this is actually the father of Mahabharata Vyasa. So he established Parashara Siddhanta. Then we have one Maharya Bhatta. There was an elder Arya Bhatta. His date 3225 BC. And then it comes Arya Bhatta 3150 BC. And Arya Bhatta's disciple was Latadeva. He wrote 3101 BC, that Surya Siddhanta, what is available. Okay. These are our Siddhantas evolved from 6778 BC to Mahabharata era. This is the Latadeva Surya. That's why 3101 BCE is not just back calculated speculative epoch. It was actually a Latadeva was living at that time, and he wrote Surya Siddhanta, and he observed a rough conjunction that occurred 18th or 19th February 3101 BC. And he was the disciple of Arya Bhatta. And Arya Bhatta was just lived few years later, Mahabharata era. Now let us discuss about the sea level rise and the bathymetry and other evidences. Like I just मैंने अभी बताया था रामायण era के, just ये जो area, if you can see, even it is if you can closely say what is the depth presently, that 10 meters or 5 meters, wherever this area it is giving the 10 meters, this entire area was actually well connected with the India. Okay. And if you see Tamraparni river used to, if you see this is the river channel. A river Tamraparni used to flow from India to Sri Lanka. This was the reason why Sri Lanka was called Tamraparni Dvipa, even during the during the period of the Buddhists after Buddha. But what happened when this area was submerged? Now Tamraparni river just flows to this sea. Otherwise, this was the channel, this Tamraparni river. And this area, that Dhanushkodi Talaimana, was the highest, geographically the highest level during that time. And that submerged very, very late when during that meltwater pulse 1, pulse 2, I think pulse 3. This sea level phenomena occurred somewhere 6200 to 5600 BC. And it was if it is impossible during that time, if it is a deep sea, you can't construct any bridge. It was actually not a construction of a bridge. It's only just landfilling to avoid the flooding during the time of high tide. This is the period 6,200 to 5,600. Now, there is an argument from the leftist historian that there is no horse found in Indus Valley civilization. That's why it cannot be a Vedic civilization, because Vedic civilization means the Vedas refer to Ashwa. Okay. वैसे गधे रिसर्च करते तो घोड़े नहीं मिलते हैं, तो गधों को कभी घोड़ा मिला नहीं उनको. Still, at Surkotda, they have found the bones of horse, and इसका पूरा evidence available है. And equus caballus, जो जिसमें 36 ribs होते हैं. ये आप the difference, equus caballus जो horse अभी है वो Central Asian है, and उसके 36 ribs होते हैं, and these bones have been found in Surkotda. But now they say that these are actually, this horse is Central Asian. When Central Asians, are the so-called Aryans, migrated to India, they came with this horse. Okay. But let us study the Rigveda of Ashwa Sukta. Okay. Ashwa Sukta of Rigveda, what actually it is referring to. Another, the unicorn. The unicorn is all Indus seals. I think majority of Indus seals have this symbol, unicorn, and generally it is a mythical animal. I am not just claiming that it may be, but there is a possibility that probably during the Holocene period, unicorn may have existed, because this Ctesias and Aristotle, they said that unicorn was originated in India. Okay. And the elongated neck. But if you see, there is another species that called Equus sivalensis, a shivalic horse, that became extinct around 8,000 BC, just close to the Holocene period. And this horse, Equus sivalensis, was found only in India, and numerous evidences have been found from Tamil Nadu to Kashmir. Okay. So this horse, Equus sivalensis, shivalic horse, existed only in India. Okay. And archaeologically, it has been proven that this Equus, this is and this Equus sivalensis, that shivalic horse, had only 34 ribs. That is the difference between Equus caballus and Equus sivalensis. And numerous fossils found in Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, related to Equus sivalensis. And preserved unicorn head has not yet been found, because the horns are generally made the materials of human hair and nails. So it cannot survive so many thousands of years. It is, I don't know if we can find if any well-preserved Equus sivalensis, the body of that shivalic horse in Himalaya somewhere, we don't know. But what actually Rigveda is actually talking about, Hiranyashringa Ashwa, okay? And it is referring to 34 ribs of Ashwa. Chatustrimshad Vajino Deva Bandhor Vakri Rashvasya Swadhitis Sameti. So Rigveda has to be dated when this shivalic horse was existed in India. And the Sayanacharya also actually explaining that this Ashwa had 34 ribs. How he could do it? Probably he had the traditional knowledge, how to translate or how to explain this verse of Rigveda. And it refers to Hiranya Shringaha, Tava Shringani. Why Rigveda is referring to Shringa? Probably that Ashwa mentioned in Rigveda may be a unicorn. And this was the reason. And for Ashwamedha, they used to use only this horse. And even Vedic period, it became very, very rare. Only Mandhata had an Ashwa. uh, only that was suitable for an Ashwamedha. And later Ashwamedha was banned because Ashwa was not available, became extinct. Later we started doing Ashwamedha using that Equus caballus, the Ashwa having 36 ribs, a Central Asian Ashwa. And if you see the Sumerian Gilgamesh also, there is a unicorn. And in Upanishads, Kekaya used to be Ashwapati, and Scythians were the horse breeders. And they actually used to breed the Shivalik horses. And you may have noticed the Scotland, their national animal is actually unicorn. It's a mythical. Why they made unicorn? Actually, the unicorn, it has a horn. Then the horse can fight with even lion or tiger if even if you are going in the woods or any thick jungles. That was the reason why a unicorn was considered as a power symbol. And if you go back to the history of the Scots, who were the Scots? Scots were actually the descendants of the Scythian prince, and his wife's name was Scota. She was a princess of Egypt. So Scythian tradition, the unicorn, that Scythian, when these Scots migrated towards the Scotland or in England, then they preserved their tradition, and this was the reason why. After the biblical flood, the Scythian, he married Scota. Those Scots actually originated from Scythian. Scythian was Shaka, we can say certainly Indian. So this was the tradition. Even today, the Scythians, how they decorate the horses, if you see, as a unicorn. So we need to see whether unicorn may not be mythical. So this is even if the archaeological evidences recent in 2001, a lost city was found in Khambat. Documented everything, but the archaeologists are not able to accept it because they haven't found any clear pictures. I don't know how you will get the clear pictures in that muddy waters and only using the sonars. But now we may have a better sonars. We have to go back and get the clear pictures. Otherwise, we found all evidences. You have pottery, you have everything, but they want the clear picture of evidence of a city. Okay, a city or even a human settlement. And recently, newspaper reports about Pumpuhar, somewhere closer to the Kaveri Pattanam, a submerged city, and it submerged around 50 meters below. So it can only be dated 9,000 to 10,000 BC or even beyond. And Bhirana, in the most ancient city. Now we have to find the marine archaeology may give very good answers for this archaeological evidence, because the Ten Madurai and Kavatapuram in Tamil history, I'll just show you. The first Sangam period lasted for 4,400 years. At that time, Ten Madurai was the capital of Pandyas, and it was submerged by sea 6,826 BCE. Thereafter, they shifted to Kavatapuram. Okay. Kavatapuram became the capital of Pandya. And interestingly, Ramayana is referring to Kavatapuram as the capital of Pandyas. So that's why Ramayana has to be dated only during the second Sangam period. And this Kavatapuram submerged. After that Mahabharata era, when Dwaraka was submerged by sea, same tsunami submerged the Kavatapuram also. Thereafter, the present Madurai became the capital of Pandyas. So these are the two lost cities we can easily find if we do a very expensive marine archaeology. But we don't have any interest because we are busy in maintaining Taj Mahal. Okay. Now, I'll just quickly cover this out of India migrations, because if we are the ancient civilization, we are not the only one existed here, numerous other civilizations. The first, the Danans were the first settlers of Greece. Why so much close in mythology, also in historically, there is a great connection between Greeks and Indians. That is actually the Danavas. In 14,000 BC, as per my calculations, the Denans Danavas, when Indra defeated Vritrasura, Vritrasura was son of Danu. So then the Danavas, the followers or his descendants of Vritra, they migrated towards Anatolia, means modern Turkey, and then Greece. And if you see the archaeogenetic studies, R1b gene actually came to Europe only in somewhere 14,000 to 13,000 BC. Now, Asuras, during the Rigvedic period, Devasuras, that Indra Shambhara conflict, that led that these Asuras, they have to migrate towards the Persia, modern Iran. And that time, Devas had 4 Vedas and Asuras have their own Veda, Asura Veda. So the Asuras migrated to Persia with Asura Veda. Same Asura Veda has been rewritten as a recompiled as Avesta around 7000 BC by the Zoroaster I. This is the reason why the Sanskrit and Avesta is very close. This is the reason. Asura Veda. Then Egyptian kings, who were the first dynasty, they claim that they are the descendants of Sham. And this Sham was actually the son of Nariman and grandson of that the Persian, the Jamshed, and the traditional history of Persian Asuras given in that book, Firdausi's book, Shahnama. Modern historian reject that as a mythology, but it's not a mythology. There is actual real Asura kings of the history of Asura kings mentioned in Shahnama. So this Sham, but it means the Persians migrated to Egypt and became the settlers of the Egyptian civilization. The Persian civilization came out of Indian civilization. Egyptian civilization came out of Persian civilization. And the Matsyas, the Sindh and Rajasthan, the Matsyas and the Sindhis. Sindhis generally worship Varuna as their god, Varuna as a Vedic god. And they migrated to Persian Gulf region, because Persian Gulf was not a gulf. If you go back to 8,000, 9,000 BC, later the seawater came after 9,000 or 8,000 BC, even around 6,000 BC, the Persian Gulf completely flooded with the seawater. Prior to that, it was a very fertile land for the agriculture. So the Sindhis, and they migrated there and they started doing. And this is how the Sumerian civilization, that when after Persian Gulf was flooded, then they migrated to northwards and settled on the Euphrates and Tigris rivers became they started settling there. And Arattas and Shakas. Shakas and Arattas had a common heritage, and both are. So it means northern Iran is the Aratta. And they actually defeated the Persian kings and they started dominating over the Iran 6,900 BC. This is the reason there are numerous references of Arattas in the Sumerian civilization. If India did not exist, how the Aratta reference is there? And Arattas are mentioned in Bodhayana, Shrauta Sutra, and entire our Vedic literatures. And Aratta used to be the northern, westernmost area, because that Amavasu, Pururava and Urvashi had 2 sons, Ayu and Amavasu. Ayu used to rule over the eastern region, and the Amavasu used to reign over the western region up to Aratta region. Aratta region is up to northern Iran. And Yavanas were actually the sons of Turvashu, of Vedic king, and they migrated to Anatolia and came to be known as Ionians. Yavana became Ionian, Javan and Ionians. And the Scythians migrated around 6,500. That's why the entire that Bulgaria region, even the Danube river is called Scythian river. This is how the Scythians dominated over the entire this from Central Asia to East Europe. Then Shaka, Bahalika. Then another, the Kalamukha Asuras. The Jews are actually Kalami people mentioned by the Herodotus, the first historian, so-called. So Kalamis were actually Kalamukha Asuras. These Asuras actually migrated from India to Assyria, and that is actually biblical tradition. Then Romas. Another interesting point is the Surkot in Pakistan, and even Mahabharata refers to a area of Shuras. These Shuras migrated to Anatolia. They were not Asuras, okay? They are very much the Deva tradition. So when they migrated to Anatolia, they came to be Shuras, became Huras and Hurrians. These Hurrians were Mitannis. That's why a tablet found in that region is actually they're invoking the names of Indra, Varuna, Nasatya, Rigvedic gods, because Asuras never take the name of Indra, because Indra is an enemy for them. For the Deva tradition, Vritra is an enemy. So that's why in Avesta, Indra is a villain, not a hero. So if they were Asuras, they will never take the name. They were actually the Shuras, the migrated from India to Anatolia. They were the Hurrians, and the Hurrian, the language and everything. And even Yavanas only those Hittites. Ionians only Hittites. That Ionians and the Shuras, they had a treaty, a war treaty, that is actually an archaeological evidence, and both are not belong to any Asura tradition. That's why both are invoking the Rigvedic gods. And even the Celts, Scots, Britain, they are originated from Scythians. Germans are originated from the Aratta migrant. That's why that so-called Aryan origin of Germans is not anything with the Vedic Aryans. They were actually Arattas. The Aryans are not Aryans, okay? This is how even the eastwards Burma and Southeast Asia was actually, it is just extension of Indian civilization up to the Indonesia, even up to Philippines, and then even southern China had certain Hindu temples. Okay. And another interesting fact, post Mahabharata era, there is a reference in two books. One is the Anabasis of Alexander, written by Arin, and another book written by Alberoni. What they mention, one very interesting fact is the Scythians, they invaded Egypt and ruled over Egypt for 400, 500 years. Only one foreign dynasty out of 30 dynasties ruled over Egypt is the Hyksos dynasty. That Shaka became Saha, Hyk, the Haka, Hyk, probably that is the Hyksos. And the exact dating, Anabasis of Arin, what he's saying, he's saying that name of one Scythian, he subdued many tribes of Asia and invaded Egypt. This is the statement before Semiramis. And what actually the Alberoni is saying, Aphrodisios, an Indian king, ruled over Egypt about 900 years after the deluge. So I have dated deluge 3708, then 900, 2808. And another fact, what Alberoni is saying that he indicates that the Indian king was the first who introduced the chariot drawn by two horses. It means using the war chariot was the only invention of Indians. It is actually Indians introduced to the world. The West never used war chariots before the Egypt. So these are the hard evidences that Indian civilization is most continuous, and I can say the oldest continuous civilization, and having the history of at least 16,500 years. Thank you for the patience, and I think I took a little longer.
Oh, bad.
Few astronomical evidence. Few things we have to first, which are rarely. Some are very cyclical. So that can occur every year or every 12 years or every 30 years. Like a Saturn cycle is the 30 years. Jupiter is 12-year cycle. And everything in within 30 years, everything can cycle. But like appearance of a comet in a nakshatra, it is the rarest event. So you have to first find out that. Based on that, you have to work out the chronology of the Ramayana era and whatever the dates are mentioned. Yes, what happened, we have been authorized to, during the traditional Purana Itihasa tradition, we used to update. Updation is not anything we are just concocting and writing something. Few things we used to add on based on the whatever the historians, that Purana, the updaters. Sometimes they missed few things. This was the reason why few contradictions are there in Ramayana also. That is why, because in Yuddha Kanda it is mentioned that Pura Valmiki na Kritam. मीन्स प्राचीन काल में वाल्मीकि ने लिखा था, ये वाल्मीकि खुद नहीं लिख सकते ना, कोई ना कोई अपडेट था. ये अपडेट करते समय वो समय था जब वैशाखी कैलेंडर, द मिथिला हिस्टोरियंस, बिकॉज जनरल मिथिला they started following that Baisakhi calendar. This Baisakhi calendar came only 2000 BC to 1000 BC period. Okay. At that time, this was the reason why that so-called that all 5 planets are on exaltation, that reference. In that one, it is mentioned Chaitra as a Dwadasha Masa. Means a 12th month Chaitra means Vaishakha was the first month. But this calendar was not invoked during the Rigvedic period. And that shloka is not there in every manuscript. So this exaltation, all planets in exaltation, is actually an astrological kind of an expectation. It was not a actual astronomical observations.
Okay. Just one more, because your Sanskrit scholar, I have read, I'm sure you have read, all the Upanishads also. So you think that in Vedas Upanishad, Ashwamedha, do you think whatever I understand Madhukand, that this was the symbol, the horse was the symbol of universe. So do you think the sacrifice, actual sacrifice had taken place at that time in Yajnas? Or like Swami Dayananda Saraswati from Ashvidyan Gurukulam was taking the Behadharanic classes from him. And that's how we understand that it was the glory of the universe, and it was like dawn to dusk and whatever. So how do you take that? Do you believe that actual sacrifice of the horse animal was given?
The Upanishadic tradition actually is a philosophical tradition. Okay. Right. During the Rigvedic period, one is the ritualistic, okay, where we used to follow the Vedic yajnas and others.
The first Upanishads are, right?
Yeah. So the ritualism, we all say that the many gods, Indra is a god and Varuna, they're all once upon a time a historical person. In every civilization, whether West or East, civilization actually worships their own great historic personalities. And like we see Matri Devo Bhava, Pitri Devo Bhava, Acharya Devo Bhava, so we had a Mahapurusha Devo Bhava. We saw God in our great historical person. This was the reason why Upanishadic tradition is the only monotheism only in a way, Brahma, or it's only everything is only Advaita. Right. Still we had so many gods. That is actually our ancient historic person. That's why the temples are why sacred, because at that particular place our historical person stayed or lived there. That's why the place can't be shifted. So this was the ritual. Where in Upanishadic tradition, sometimes what happened, we started explaining. In that way, Ashwa, philosophically, he started the cosmological.
So can I ask a question?
Why should we? One thing we should clearly, we should not impose our present moral or ethical understandings on the history. You can't say that why Dasharatha had 3 wives. Okay. So these is irrelevant questions. Similarly, whether their sacrifice did or not, that won't make anything something this. Right now, it is difficult to say what actually, but Ashwamedha was generally, they used to send an Ashwa and then an army used to follow. If anybody he has to stop, and that tradition was there. Right. But after that, they used to sacrifice or not, I can't say, but some kind of a sacrifice later, it came into the practice. But we should not say that some way we need not to disown or anything.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there would be a problem.
From the
Honestic assessment of
point
the
of view, we can take that because
actually some people they want that we used to follow ahimsa.
They need that kind of a courage to Kshatriya people. So that is fine. There's nothing wrong. That's what I was just curious to say that. Yeah.
So can I ask a question?
Sure. Yes, please.
Yeah. So first of all, this talk is highly informative. And to me, it's really eye-opener and highly enlightening. See, we are very thankful to you, people like you, who have been working hard to uncover the truth of chronology of our tradition. So we are very thankful to you for this. We feel kind of proud of this, our heritage, because of people like you. Thank you so much.
Thanks
now, I have a question about Dwarka, that what is the status? It is submerged or still in the bottom or still there? Anything, any information about Dwarka?
Traditionally, if you see as per the Bhagavata Purana and the Harivansha Purana, the location of Dwarka, first you have to find out. And it was actually south of the that Girinar means Girinar, the hills, that Raivataka hills, and probably the city found in Kambe was a Dwaraka, because Kushasthali, Raivata Manu, he founded the Kushasthali. Once Kushasthali was submerged by sea, later that reclaimed, probably the land resurfaced out of the sea, where the Dwaraka was built, and that was submerged in a sea. So this was the location, and we need to, actually in 2001, they had very weak sonars. Based on that, whatever the photograph they could take, nothing was clear. So archaeologists just rejected the claims made by the Badri Narayan, who was the oceanographist. Okay. Right now, we had very, very advanced sonars. Why not we go again and do something? But the problem is the modern archaeologists have nothing. They are only interested in maintaining Taj Mahal and sitting in AC rooms. This is the very pathetic situation by the archaeological department. At least government should take an interest and do this marine archaeology will give the very good evidence, because no one can erase, because no human can touch first. Second, the sea level will give you very accurate data, because the particular land which was submerged when it was above the sea level can be easily dated. So that's why the marine archaeology will give very good answer. Even in South Tamil Nadu, those two cities, what I'm saying, Ten, Madurai and Kavatapuram. Kavatapuram was the capital city of Pandyans during the Ramayana. And prior to that Vedic period, Ten, Madurai. And it is such a Rishi Agastya, who was writing a grammar on Tamil, and he's writing Vedic Suktas. So Vedic Sanskrit and Tamil coexisted. And both are actually sisters born to the same mother.
So during on the Dwarka, SR Rav's lot of work is available, right? On the archaeological evidence of submerging and all those research. So is that being considered?
SR Rav is doing other side, that in the northern side. Around 1500 BC something, his dating and others.
Right.
There are now, what happened, we need to first establish the chronology. Then we find out where was that Mool Dwarka, and then, because the Sri Krishna was actually closer to the Dwarka was closer to Somnath. And present Dwaraka, what actually Bed Dwaraka we generally do, that was actually Shankha, the Sri Krishna killed Shankhasura there. So there was also an ancient city existed, but the actual location of Dwaraka given in our Puranas, Harivansha and other, are south to Somnath and south to the Girinar.
I think it was a Mosla Khand also in Mahabharata.
Yes.
There is actually Asha Chandji has posted a question.
I have a question also.
Yeah, so I'm going to read it, Asha ji. So the out of childhood curiosity that people born in Mula Nakshatra is bad Nakshatra.
And died in Mula Nakshatra also.
And the child born in Mula Nakshatra, they have to do some Shanti. Is that true? Is the Ashacharya's question?
I'm a chronologist and historian.
Yeah.
But I don't want to comment on astrology, but I'll just give you the background of the astrology. What happens, astrology is evolved based on our expectations. When we see historically something good happen, then we'll say, okay, under this nakshatra, something good happened. Because Ravana born in Mula Nakshatra. Ravana was a bad person, that's why the Mula Nakshatra became bad. Okay. Like few nakshatras are good nakshatras for Vivaha. But generally, even though Rama Sita were married in Uttara Phalguni, that's a very good nakshatra. But generally, people avoid having marriage ceremony on Uttara Phalguni. Why? Because Sita faced so many problems in her life. This is the background behind the astrology.
But they were saying कि मतलब अगर कोई मूलों में मरा है तो नक्षत्र का जो महत्व था, मेरे जैसे मैं अपने चाइल्डहुड की बात बताती हूँ, मेरे पिताजी कहते थे कि हम इस दिशा में नहीं जाएंगे, चाला नहीं है। तो क्या नक्षत्रों का इतना ग्रेट प्रभाव पड़ता था लोगों पर कि हर काम वो नक्षत्रों के हिसाब से?
नहीं, वो नहीं है, क्योंकि रावण जैसा दुष्ट व्यक्ति पैदा हुआ था उसमें मूल नक्षत्र में, से उस नक्षत्र को अच्छा नहीं माना जाता।
लेकिन एक मेरा सवाल है कि हमारे
इसका कोई ऐसा नहीं है कि कोई साइंटिफिकली मूल नक्षत्र किसी को उस तरीके से अफेक्ट करेगा। तो मैं इसलिए कह रहा हूँ कि मैं एस्ट्रोलॉजी पर नहीं कमेंट करना चाह रहा हूँ, क्योंकि कई बार कुछ लोग इमोशनल अटैचमेंट हो सकता है।
आपकी बात से सहमत हूँ, लेकिन मेरा दूसरा सवाल ये है कि देवास एंड असुरास, Devas were always very tricky, and Indra is our god, king of the Devas. And हमेशा जब समुद्र मंथन भी हुआ तो असुराज वर बलिष्ठ, इसलिए उनसे समुद्र मंथन करा लिया गया। और जब अमृत का घड़े की बात हुई तो फिर हमने फिर ट्रिकी कर दिया। तो असुराज आर बैड और देवास आर बैड, दे वर ऑलवेज प्लेइंग ट्रिक्स।
नहीं, ये देखिए कि आपका पॉलिटिकल पावर का क्या है वो, इसलिए कौन सही था कौन गलत। क्या राजा बलि कोई गलत नहीं था, लेकिन फिर भी वामन ने उनको कहा कि नहीं आपको जाना है। तो प्रॉब्लम ये था कि वो शत्रु शेष नहीं छोड़ना है। तो कई बार क्या होता है कि आपको जब आप युद्ध में होते हैं और शत्रु के साथ होते हैं तो फिर उसके साथ सारे ट्रिक्स करना वो युद्ध में सब जायज होता है, कहा जाता है ना। तो वो वाला नीति तो हमेशा रही है।
तो धर्म अधर्म की परिभाषा नहीं रहती।
नहीं, धर्म वही है जो हित हो समाज का। तो चाहे वो अधर्म से भी हित हो, अधर्म से हित होता है। अगर कोई कहे कि ब्लाइंड बिलीफ है, कोई बात नहीं। अगर अंधविश्वास की वजह से आप अगर धर्म मार्ग पे चल रहे हो तो क्या परेशानी है।
और एक मेरा
विश्वास की वजह से रोज आप गलत काम कर रहे हो, वो व्यक्ति
मेरा सवाल है कि नीमसार इतना प्रसिद्ध तीर्थ है, और मेरे घर से बरेली से मेरे ख्याल से मेरा मुंडन मैंने सुना नीमसार में हुआ, नैमिषारण्य में मेरे बचपन में। और शोरो भी वहां के पास एक बहुत अच्छा तीर्थ है, वहां मैं गई, लेकिन नीमसार नहीं गई। तो पहले की सरकारों ने कभी नीमसार का नाम ही जो है एज ए तीर्थ में मेंशन ही नहीं किया भारत में। खाली हमने खाली किताबों में पढ़ा।
नहीं, समस्या ये होगी ना कि ड्यूरिंग द कॉलोनियल एरा उन्होंने क्या किया कि कुछ ऐसे इंडियंस को उनको अपना आश्रय दिया जो उनकी भाषा बोल सकते हैं। दे बिकेम सर्टेन एलिट्स। तो नेहरू उन्हीं एलिट्स में से आता था जिनको इंडियन ओरिजिन पे कुछ गर्व नहीं था, उनको कुछ नहीं था। तो उसका जो भी कांग्रेस ट्रेडिशन में हमेशा ये सो कॉल्ड सेक्युलरिज्म इज जस्ट ए हेट्रेड टुवर्ड्स हिंदुइज्म, दैट्स ऑल, और एनीथिंग इंडियन, नथिंग ग्रेट अबाउट इट, दे जस्ट वो। तो उस वजह से हमने बहुत सारा जो हमारा ऐतिहासिक जो जगह था, नैमिषारण्य तो हमारे एस्ट्रोनॉमी के रिसर्च का एक मूल केंद्र था। 1000 years तक, so many generations, they meticulously they have worked hard to decode so much of things. So that's I think ऐसा कभी किसी और सिविलाइजेशन में ऐसे एविडेंसेस आपको नहीं मिले।
अनपैरेलल कि भाई
कुछ नहीं। एंड जो त्याग जो है ना, आप अगर देखिए इतने इन्वेजन इतना होते हुए भी वेदों को उसी फॉर्म में रखने तक कितने जनरेशन उसको मेमोराइज करके, उसको लिख करके, उसको आज तक एक दूसरे, उससे कुछ उनको कोई सैलरी थोड़ी मिल रही थी जिसके लिए वो काम कर रहे थे। वो जो निष्कारण धर्म है ना, वो भारत के अलावा कहीं नहीं है।
एक बात कि भारत खाली एक ऐसा देश है, इतना सब कुछ इन्वेजन होने के बाद भी पूरी तरह से जो है वो उसको कुछ बिगाड़ा तो बहुत कुछ है, पर कन्वर्ट नहीं कर पाए, लाइक एनी अदर प्लेसेस।
हाँ नहीं, बिल्कुल। जो सो कॉल्ड सिविलाइजेशन खत्म क्यों है? ग्रीस आज भी एग्जिस्ट करता है क्योंकि दे कन्वर्टेड टू क्रिश्चियनिटी। इजिप्शियन सिविलाइजेशन खत्म क्यों हो गया? ऐसा नहीं है कि कोई वो डायनासोर की तरह खत्म हो गया। अरे दे कन्वर्टेड टू क्रिश्चियनिटी, देन इस्लाम। सो कॉल्ड सुमेरियंस खत्म नहीं हुए, ईरान इराक आज भी एग्जिस्ट करता है, पर्शियंस।
Okay, let me ask question, Ashaji. Yeah, so I'm जगदीश शर्मा, मैं भी मेरठ से हूँ, अरुणा जी मेरठ से हैं, तो आपसे मिलेंगे सारा। तो उसमें I want to mention two things. I did PhD in physics, and at one time I calculated in physics we have like a Berkeley course for advanced undergraduate, and for quantum mechanics first chapter without any solving a differential equation, they derive almost all nuclear physics intuitively. Usi tarah se I applied a method that how our ancestors found that 1/1/3 is the time it goes where the sun goes around our galactic center, which is a huge black hole. One complete year of year sun is about the same as Manvantara. That's what I found out. So they might have used some same calculation like without doing math, but argument there. So I'll write to you sometimes. And so that's, so they estimated the one month, like the time it takes sun to go around the galactic Milky Ways. Black, the center have black hole, massive black hole, one full year of sun around it. Okay. Also,
Sanskrit grammar, we used to have a 20,000, 25,000 sutras. Memorizing 20,000, 25,000 sutras was a very difficult effort, and it used to take 4 years or 5 years to memorize all sutras. What Panini did, he came out of the very, very modern techniques. What he started using arrays, he started using databases, he started using some very innovative ideas. With that one, he reduced all those 25 sutras into 4,000 sutras. This is the contribution of Panini. Not he introduced Sanskrit grammar for the first time. This actually that all historians are ignorant or illiterates in Sanskrit. This is the biggest problem. And they are researching in ancient Indian history.
But did he
historians must be taught Sanskrit first.
Absolutely,
if you want to do.
Mike, I mean, the reason I asked you was more because, like, I mean, there's also a debate whether Sanskrit is actually evolved from something else, or is it Devavani as they call it, right? Like, I mean, as
it has been like what I'm saying. It's an artificial language. Don't look at natural language. Okay.
Yeah.
It has been evolved based on a syntax. That's why Sanskrit remained always a kind of a learned people language. But when common people started learning this, that became Prakrit because that kept on corrupting.
I want to mention one thing important. Yeah. I want to mention very important thing. I read a paper in Journal of Electrical Engineering. It's a very advanced journal. There, I think a scholar complained that this Baker's norm form on which Fortran or computer science based must be called Parni form. So
yes.
Parni is the meta language. So it was his contribution, like using Maheshwar Sutra as meta language to define 4,000 grammar, right? Is that right?
Yes. Panini actually used all these techniques.
And his time was, I think, Arya Samaj scholar, I forgot his name, the greatest one, he gave him his time 2800 BCE. Is that right? I think Arya Samaj scholars who's, I think, forgot, he's the greatest one. I think after Swami Saraswati, he said it is 2800 BC, Panini's time.
No, that I can't comment on that. But presently, our historical timeline is Panini was during the Nanda period before Mauryas. Okay.
So that's about 2000.
Because he was the student of one Varsha Upavarsha. There were the two great scholars.
I see.
He was there. And during that time, Katyayana, he was actually teaching Aindra Vyakarana. We had an ancient grammar was Aindra Vyakarana. We had a Shakatayana Vyakarana. Yeah. We had one more Kalapa Vyakarana mentioned by Patanjali himself in his Mahabharata. So Panini, what he did, he said that we are wasting so much of time memorizing around 20-25,000, so many. Why should we? If I can do with the minimum effort, then that is the best way. So what he did, he came out of very concise sutras and very innovatively he came out. That is his contribution. Not the Sanskrit grammar is now. Sanskrit grammar existed even before.
If Bhagwan Buddha is 2800 or 1900